I think all of us grow up receiving messages from our parents or loved ones or important people in our lives. For me, one of the messages I received growing up from my dad was this importance of wisdom, the importance of wisdom. And it's not, I don't think, a really common thing to really grow up thinking about often. You know, whenever we were going to bed, he would often read to us from this big book called the Book of Virtues. And it was just, I think, to create moral kids, I guess. Sometimes when he was working on a project, I'd ask him, hey, how do you do that? How do you fix this thing? How do you build this thing? And he would always say, very carefully. I think it was his way of not fully engaging the question because he was focused on what he was doing. But it was also a lesson for life of we do things carefully. We take our time, we figure things out. We act wisely and with caution. And I've been thinking about this wisdom in our lives. I've been thinking about acting in accordance to a set of rules versus a path of wisdom. I also heard this thing growing up in church about what the Bible was. It was an acronym that said the Bible was basic instructions before leaving earth. Basic instructions before leaving earth. And I liked that as a kid. That made sense. Until I started reading the scriptures, and then there's a lot of not instructions in there. Like there's a lot of war and murder and like plagues and stuff. I'm like, I don't think that's just like instructions before leaving earth. There's a lot of other stuff in there. And then I started reading the scriptures through this lens of wisdom. And this week I was reading Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16. Jeremiah is speaking to the people of Judah, and he's really tired of them. God is kind of fed up with how they've been acting. And this is what Jeremiah says to the people of Judah. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. I think this is what we're talking about today. I think we're talking about ways of life, right? The world will give us all sorts of paths of life. We could walk down the path of pursuing money or power or politics or whatever. Like we can walk down all these paths. But Jeremiah here is telling the people of Judah, and I think telling us, to look for the ancient paths, these good ways of living, these wise paths. And I think that's what spiritual growth is. I think spiritual growth for us, for you and for me, is walking faithfully down these paths of wisdom, not just seeking black and white answers, but thinking how we can be fully formed humans, fully formed people in God's image that walk down these ancient paths of wisdom. And so that's my encouragement for you today, is to dig into the scriptures. Think about your choices as you walk through this week, not as black and white decisions, but as decisions made in the wisdom of God. Because these ancient paths, these paths of wisdom that stand the test of time, that are revealed in the scriptures, this is our way to walk through this crazy, scary, and confusing world with our heads held high in the confidence that we have in the Lord.